And welcome in to the Blitz podcast. I am your host today, Mr. Kane Schwartz, and I'm joined by, as always, Jaden Kozak. And we're here to talk about a little bit of Thursday Night Football, a little bit of a preview for this week, and it'll be a good time, man. So, hyped to get into week two. Week two is upon us, second week of the football season. How we feeling?
Feeling pretty good. Just looking for more good football. I mean, I feel like week one we talked about it was kind of like a C plus B minus week. That Monday Night Football game really helped out on the grading scale. So maybe we can bump that grade up a little bit this week. At least that's the hope anyway.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. But first things first, got to talk about a little bit of Thursday night football that happened last night. And it looked really bad for a while in that game. I mean, it was a question of whether or not they were playing real football. But you wouldn't be able to tell by the final score, 28-34. Eagles walk away from this one. Honestly, I mean, we were talking about in the Blitz group chat that they maybe deserve to be moved down just by that performance alone. Now, they had a nice second half to kind of put them into a better light, I would say. DeAndre Swift helped out a lot with that. I know you've got some beef with the man. 28 carries, 175 yards when he wasn't involved at all last week. And as somebody who just spent $100 of fab on Kenny Gainwell in a league, I feel pretty sick today, personally. But we're going to move on. You know, it is what it is. But I don't even know what to break down from this game, man. Oh, AJ Brown beefing with Jalen Hurts last night. I mean, that was an issue. Only going for 6 points in fantasy. Smitty had a hell of a game, though. J. Jeff had a hell of a game. But what'd you take away from last night?
Yeah, I mean, was a slow start for Philly. It was really a sloppy start for both teams. We saw, both teams turn the ball over, but the only problem was Minnesota kept making the mistakes. Philly was able to capitalize on them. They did the old, we're going to go get to the inch line like three times. Jalen Hurts just hops over the line, touchdown, easy.
The tush push.
Yeah. Which was great because I was playing DeAndre Swift against a guy that's tanking, by the way. And he got one carry last week, so I was like, not worried about him. Boom! Smacks me right in the fucking face, like 28 fucking points. And I really did think it was going to keep happening where he didn't get in the end zone because he kept getting stopped at the inch line, and then Jalen Hurts would just punch it in. He does end up getting in the end zone, though. You did mention pre-pod that he has not gotten that many carries since high school, so that's awesome. Because you got to think Georgia, he was in not a committee per se, but there was a lot of guys there. Detroit, he was splitting time or injured most of the time. So never really got that work there. And his first game in Philly, again, one carry. So yeah, didn't really expect that to happen, but with no Kenny Gainwell, I guess didn't really expect Boston Scott. I also heard Al Michaels say on my television set last night that Rashad Penny was back deep for kicks. What? What?
He was also in the backfield for like 2 or 3 snaps.
Yeah,
But
but
what
like,
happened there? What happened there?
why is like even if you don't like the guy, Rashad Penny is not a kick returner.
No.
Like at all. He's not like
No.
that. Like he can turn big, he can turn plays into big runs, but like he's not that like elusive speed threat that you'd want back at kick return. So that was a curious choice. I don't even know if he
I'd
ended
put
up returning
Boston
a kick.
Scott as a kick returner before I
Yeah,
would put Shad Penny.
like
So
he
they're
did.
just
I
trying to
like.
figure out ways to use that money because
I
they
just.
paid him
I'm
this
sorry.
offseason.
For those of you that are watching the show on YouTube, did not even put the score thing up until right now, so that's my bad.
Shame on
But
you, man.
I know.
I said it's 28-34. I mean, it was really looking at it. I can't believe that ended up being the final score. But they're just trying to figure out ways to use Rashad Penny at this point because they paid for him this offseason. And he was a healthy scratch in week one when all their RBs were healthy. So there is serious concern there for Rashad Penny. But it seems like this Eagles running game is going to be just fine all season. Uh, I kind of want to talk a little bit about A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts beefing back and forth last night. I mean, if Devontae Smith continues to surge, I mean, he has already surged, but I mean, if he continues to take steps forward, then A.J. Brown could be a little bit of phased out of this offense, especially if they're given 28 carries to their running back. And if they want to focus on the run, it's kind of scary time in AJ Brown land. I don't know. What do you think?
Phased out is not the word that I would use. I would use something like less of a workload. But he was never like a
Sure.
target monster last year. Like his points came on long catches and touchdowns. Like that's where he gave you the work as far as fantasy production goes. So, you're like this is going to be part of the AJ Brown experiences. There will be games where he has 4 catches for 24 yards because he doesn't get in the end zone and they don't have the big play materialize. Their big play last night, at least on the offensive end, was the Devontae Smith 60-ish yard catch. So this is kind of the thing. If you like fantasy reasons, if you're rostering AJ Brown, this is what you should expect at this point. On the flip side, though, Jordan
Yeah.
Addison looked good in limited roles. Again, he had another big play. Justin Jefferson does what Justin Jefferson does. Kirk Cousins had like a very weird performance because I'm pretty sure he fumbled at least once last night. I don't know.
He fell in the backfield once last
Yeah,
night, which kind of looked
maybe
ugly.
it was everybody else fumbled for Minnesota then because I know
Yeah.
he fumbled twice last week, but he does end up throwing for 4 touchdowns. He looks fine. I was also looking through the PFF grades before we started. Jordan Mailata, left tackle for the Eagles, 96.9.
Ooh, wow.
I think that's the highest number I've seen for a single game, which
Pretty
is
impressive.
bananas.
I mean that Minnesota front line, I will say, in that first half, they were giving credit to Brian Flores, and like that defense did look pretty dirty in the first half, at least. But after that, it kind of all went downhill. But you mentioned Kirk Cousins, 364, 4 tuds, no picks. That's pretty good. He ends up with 2 sacks on the day. But yeah, man, I mean, Alexander Madison, dude, where is this guy?
I, dude, I said it. I said, look, it's great that he's got the workload. He's not the back. Like he's just not the guy, I think, for this team, to actually create a competent running game and be a weapon for them. He's just not that good of a player, quite frankly.
Yeah, and I mean, on 8 carries, 28 yards, 3.5 yards per carry, 1 fumble. I mean, that's not good. So I don't know what they're gonna do. I mean, they're definitely missing a little bit of that Dalvin Cook in Minnesota. I mean, we talked about it a little bit when we did a mock episode the other day, I guess you can call it. But yeah, I mean, I just want to see more out of that. But either way, Eagles continue to roll. Um, there was some questionable power rankings things, but I think they solidified themselves after putting up 34 points on the Vikings last night. But let's move on and let's talk about the week 2 slate ahead of us, starting with Sunday. And we will talk about Green Bay Atlanta Falcons to start us off today. And let me pull up our spread here. It's got to be pretty close. So, spread in this game, Green Bay -1.5. Well, it opened at Green Bay -1.5. Actually, current is the Falcons -1.5, which kind of shocks me a little bit. What are you looking to watch in this game, man? I mean, Jordan Love's coming off of a really nice game in Chicago. Bijan Robinson was a little quiet in his debut. The passing game wasn't really on for Atlanta. What are you watching for?
I mean, really, the matchup that I'm looking for is obviously, or really, I've got two things. So, like you said, Bijan Robinson, I want to see how they continue to put out this running game. What they continue to do, how they split Bijan's touches, how they split Algiers' touches, what they're going to do against this Packers defense, which had a pretty good week last week. Rashawn Gary, he's getting eased back into this defense. He had, I think, 6 pressures on 12 snaps, or it was 5 pressures on 10 pass rush snaps, which is bananas because that's like twice the pressure rate of like the very, 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 very good edge rushers in the league. Um, so that's going to be interesting to see, especially against the Bears' offensive line, which definitely has its question marks. I want to see how Darnell Wright holds up after he had a pretty solid week 1. Devontae Wyatt also played pretty well for Green Bay last week. And I just want to continue to see how they deploy this run game in Atlanta. But then on the flip side, I also want to see, what we're going to see from Jordan Love because we saw last week he got pressured like none
Yeah.
last week. And he was able to stay up, stay clean. He could sit back there, take his time putting plays together. And he completed 15 passes for like 270 yards and 3 touchdowns. a lot of that was Aaron Jones making stuff happen after the catch. Like Jordan Love, he had some plays where he looked kind of inaccurate. And again, the box score numbers look great, but if you look into the context and, see how those yards and those touchdowns came about, it's a little bit put into question a little bit. But this Atlanta defense, on the flip side of that, put together a really good week last week, but Bryce Young threw them the ball 2 or 3 times as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is a really talented secondary. I mean, Bates made a play last week in Carolina or against Carolina, so you like to see that. Paid a decent amount of money for him. But I will say about Jordan Love dishing it off to Aaron Jones, like, yes, that is definitely a stat padding for sure. But, I mean, a really good quarterback did hit before he did, and that was Aaron Rodgers, man. I mean, he dumped the ball plenty to Aaron Jones, and that padded him plenty. I mean, obviously, Jordan Love is not Aaron Jones. I will temper the expectations, but like he did that. Aaron Jones is there for that reason, man. And they've got AJ Dillon if they really want to run between the tackles, but they do it with Aaron Jones anyway. So that's something I'll be watching for a little bit. And then also signs of life from Drake London and this Falcons pass game. I've invested pretty heavily in. I don't know why. Just
Hey,
because
you're
they're young.
just a moron.
I mean, they're both top 5 picks, but Kyle Pitts, Drake London have shown. I mean, Kyle Pitts did a little bit of something last week. I think it was 2 catches for 44 yards, something like that. So, I mean, in comparison to what they threw the ball like 13 times in that game. So, I guess he's getting a little bit of the work, but need signs of life from this passing game because they won't. I mean, they can rely on their offensive line and their run game, but I want to see if they can actually use Desmond Ridder in any way functional. So, yeah. Who are you taking in this game, though? I think I'm gonna take Green Bay. Yeah, I think LaFleur is starting to prove that he's that guy.
This is such a tough one, man, because I do think that Green Bay probably the better team. Atlanta is at home, and if they can get the run game going again, who really knows? I'm not going to say the sky's the limit because the sky can't be the limit with that passing offense that they've got in Atlanta. It is certainly a spectacle.
Yeah,
I think I'll take Green Bay on this one as well, picking up a road win.
there we go. All right. Well, now we move on to the next matchup we got on the slate, and that is the Las Vegas Raiders against the Buffalo Bills, man. And this one's got some interesting storylines headed in. First one off the top of my head is that Josh Allen threw 3 interceptions on Monday Night Football in a game where the Jets didn't even have Aaron Rodgers after 3 snaps, and they still came out with the dub. I mean, a very talented defense in the Jets. You won't be running into the same level of competition, certainly, in the Raiders, but I mean, this is starting to become a little bit concerning for Josh Allen. I mean, we saw it in the postseason last year where he's making careless mistakes pretty often. I mean, he's trying to make something happen. And I talked about this last year. He's not Carson Wentz. But if you look back, what Carson Wentz was trying to do after that after that MVP candidate season and he got injured, he's trying to force things. He's trying to win the game by himself. And when you make mistakes like that, I mean, it can kind of start to spiral downwards pretty fast. So, what are you looking to watch in this game? And do you have concerns about Allen?
I mean, look, I don't have concerns about Allen because what we saw on Monday night was exactly what, quite frankly, is exactly what we expected from Josh Allen. Like this is his MO at this point, dude. He's going to make 80% of the
3 of them?
Look, yes, he's leading the league in turnovers since he got into the league, but 80 to 90% of the time, he's doing stuff that once I said this in the Rankings episode, I said this in our review episode that got axed because the file was corrupted. He does stuff that no other human being can do. And for that reason, that's why he's a superstar. But he's also going to make these plays where, like, somebody, I can't remember who said it, but it's like Josh Allen is just a passenger riding in the mind of himself. Like his body is just a passenger to the driver that is his mind. And sometimes
I'll try to figure that out.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I mean, if you need to pause, go ahead, and we'll just hop back in whenever you figured it out. But like that is kind of a good comparison because he's like sometimes just so all over the place, man. And like his those picks that he threw were into like super tight windows, and there were times throughout the game where he made that throw. It's just not every human being can do that all the time, and as a result, even Josh Allen is sometimes going to miss those throws, like the double coverage posts or the triple covered post that he threw picks to Jordan Whitehead on. Like he
Dude, he
thinks
was
he can.
leading the defenders, bro. He
He
was giving them. They were dropping him in the bucket
he
to
thinks he
corner.
can do it because sometimes he has,
It's a
because
dime
he's
in
an
the corner.
alien. But
It's not even like a look back at the ball type shit with you, like with your front facing Josh Allen. They're just literally catching it in the bucket because he's overthrowing it. Because it's Josh Allen and he can throw it like 100 yards downfield without a single problem.
yeah,
But
so that part
it's
of it, I'll be interested to see. Flip side, Raiders offense looked pretty good in week one against the Denver. I mean, they put up 17 points, not like an insane number. Jimmy Garoppolo leading the league in EPA per play once again. He's so back, even in this new offense where he doesn't have the Shanahan crutch or the McCaffrey crutch or the Kittle crutch. He's got Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers and Josh Jacobs. This is a pretty good offense, man, when you really break it down. We didn't really like the weaponry here. Very good. I think
yeah.
we underrated it a good bit when we did our power rankings. The Silver and Black report on Instagram really whipped us a new one because of how low we had them. Um, but
Jacoby Myers, I feel like we slept on a little bit. He had a
yeah,
really
well,
nice
the
week
thing
one.
was, him and Hunter Renfro are so similar that like that signing didn't make sense to me. But looks like Hunter Renfro is kind of the odd man out here. I didn't see a word out of him last week. We saw a lot
Mm-mm.
out of Jacoby Myers, though. I will be interested to see how this Raiders offensive line holds up against a good Bills pass rush. Excuse me. That looked pretty good in week one. They obviously got after the Jets and Aaron Rodgers, but like
Sad.
there's Raiders offensive line. People are saying it's pretty good. I want to see it up against a really elite group, and I'm not 100% sure that Buffalo is that, but I think they're definitely a step up from Denver.
Yeah, for sure. And I agree. I mean, Tyler has his thoughts on Buffalo. And I mean, we saw, I mean, signs of concern for sure in week one against the Jets without Aaron Rodgers. So we'll see if they can bounce back this week. I mean, they open at well, the current spread is at 8.5 for the Bills. And I mean, I might take the Raiders to cover, but I'll take Bills to win.
Yeah, I think I'll do the same. I don't think there's, especially coming off the week that he just had, I don't think that it's going to be the same thing again where he's turned the ball over. Jordan Whitehead isn't an elite ball hawk by any stretch, but the Jets defense overall is elite, and I don't feel that way about Vegas.
Yeah, me neither. So, all right, let's move on through from Raiders, Bills to Baltimore, Cincinnati, which is a fun divisional matchup that we're getting in week two. Should be one of the games of the week for sure. Got some storylines in this one. I mean, since he's coming off a really rough week in which they only scored 3 points against Cleveland, so that sucked. I mean, we talked about it on the Ghost episode that there really wasn't that much to take away from that because there was so much weather in that game. It's raining all day, and Cincinnati is a pass first team, so they couldn't get any of that going. So we're really going to get a look at the first time that Cincy's going to be actually able to put their offense out there in 2023. So excited for that. Baltimore lost J.K. Dobbins to an Achilles in week one. So I'm curious to see how much the run game will be abandoned with no J.K. and receivers because this is not the same offense that we saw last year. I mean, Greg Roman was a run first guy, but they got why am I blanking? Georgia, Todd Monken. So they got him this year. He's going to pass the ball more. And we saw a little bit of that, a taste of that in week one, and I think we'll see even more of it without J.K. Dobbins. But what are you looking to watch in this game?
Yeah, so obviously the Baltimore injuries just keep ripping their seasons apart. Obviously, J.K. Dobbins done for the year. Unfortunately, this has kind of been the case recently with Dobbins. Is he hasn't been here, so they found ways to win without him, with Gus Edwards, with Justice Hill. Justice Hill got in the end zone twice, and Gus Edwards had a pretty good game on the ground. He just didn't end up scoring. So they are. I don't. Look, I've never been a J.K. Dobbins guy. Don't want to see a guy get hurt, but the fact of the matter is he is an injury-prone player, and I honestly think that they can replace his production with Gus Edwards and with Justice Hill and with Melvin Gordon or whatever practice squad 32-year-old running back that they decide to sign at this point. I feel like Kareem Hunt is bound to be a Raven at some point in his career. Maybe give it another year. He's got to get a little bit older before he qualifies to go play for the Ravens. But I will be interested to see because this offense didn't really have to do a whole lot last week. We saw like Lamar did not have the best passing game last week. At least from a production standpoint, they just, it's the Texans. They were able to score 25 points without even lifting a finger. Then you look on the flip side, and you want to talk about a team that could not lift any fingers at all. That's not
No,
really.
fingerless.
I was about to say
Fingerless
this
last
is,
week.
this is a fingerless offense that they've got going here in Cincinnati. Because my lord, I mean, look, I get it's raining, but that wasn't like a 49ers Bears last year slop fest
Right.
where you completely threw out the film. I know this is ironic as a Steelers fan, but Joe Burrow does have smaller hands, and I think that came into effect a little bit on Sunday. The guy had 82 yards. This is the guy that we consider the second best quarterback in the NFL. He had 82 yards.
He just got the biggest contract in NFL history, man.
So T. Higgins is a 50-50 ball guy, and it wasn't like he was getting schemed up for T. Higgins is throwing 50-50 balls. He had 8 targets and had 0 catches. That means he lost 8 50-50 balls, which has a 0.08% chance of happening. Not 8%. 0.8.
That is sickening. I'm curious to see his PFF grade from last week. I'm gonna look that up
good.
while you keep rolling.
Burrows is 43, but this offense could not get anything going last week. Granted, Cleveland's pass rush looked elite. Cleveland's defense looked elite. With the injuries to guys like Dobbins, Marcus Williams looks like he's going to be out for a while with a pec injury, so that's going to slow down this defense a little bit. On the offensive side, Jesus, I don't know what is the deal with me yawning this morning. Sorry.
Sleepy boy.
I know.
Lock in.
So that's going to hurt the defense a little bit for Baltimore. And then on the offensive side for Baltimore, Ronnie Stanley and Tyler Linderbaum both questionable with leg injuries. Not good. Against the Cincinnati defense that we've talked about is a sneaky good unit, especially for the names that they put out there. I'll be very interested to see this one play out. I think this is probably the game of the week, unless I'm missing something.
Yeah. I would probably put it
Jets,
in the game of the
Cowboys would have been it.
Oh man, that really I don't even want to talk about that one. But anyway, T. Higgins 45.3 receiving grade last week, which those PFF newcomers, that is terrible. That is pretty stinky. So hopefully T. Higgins does better. Hopefully the whole offense for Cincinnati does better next week or this coming week. And I don't know though. I'm probably taking. Cincinnati's -3.5. But after week 1, I know injuries are stacking up on Baltimore's side, but Zay Flowers looked really good in week 1. Mark Andrews is going to be coming back this week, so that's kind of a big deal. I'm going to take the Ravens in this one. Spreading the money line.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go Cincinnati here. I think that they're going to cover as well. I feel like there's no way that they can't get this offense back on track, especially in a game where it's neutral weather, if I'm not mistaken, in Cincinnati. This offense is too good. I just don't know if Baltimore's going to have the juice this week. I think they're going to, again, I know that they had a pretty solid game against Houston, but you're now taking a step up in competition on both sides of the ball from Houston and Cincinnati. Cincinnati, regardless of what we saw from them last week, this was one of the best teams in the NFL this last year. This is supposed to be one of the best teams in the NFL this year, and I think they're going to go out and prove it on Sunday.
Let's go. Okay, calling a shot. Kind of like you called the Steelers shot last week.
Hey man, why don't you shut
I know. I shouldn't have said that.
I just sold a Michael Parsons.
That was a low blow.
Just flipped the Michael Parsons jersey. I knew I should have wore it to the podcast. I knew I should have.
Well, for those I'm
glad. You
want
to talk shit.
Hopefully we went out with as much of a heated discussion that we had on our Ghost episode.
I was about to say the Ghost episode, we lost so much good content because we need to you know what? We'll wait for the Cowboys. We'll wait for the Cowboys.
Yeah, we'll indulge people a little bit, but I had a panic attack on the Ghost episode, so this Ghost episode will live in infamy. But all right, let's move on from Cincy and Baltimore, and let's dive into the next matchup we got to talk about, and it is Seattle and Detroit. Detroit coming off a really solid week in which they won against the Chiefs in Kansas City on Thursday night to lead off the football season. So gotta love to see that. Detroit looked pretty good. Jared Goff looked locked in. Amon-Ra seems to be doing his thing. Definitely had some question marks in the running game. David Montgomery was the guy on Thursday night,
Talk
even
about
though it was
that.
clear to anybody yeah, we could talk
We're gonna
about
talk
that.
about that.
Yeah,
I'm
but
very excited to talk about that.
like you said in the chat, like I mean, it was pretty clear to everybody on that was watching the game that Gibbs had the more explosive runs. I will say that for sure. But we'll see what the split is between those two this coming week, and hopefully we see a little bit more out of this Seattle offense. Geno Smith in particular. I mean, they couldn't really get the run game going last week, and that's a staple of Pete Carroll. And when you can't really get that going, you're not going to get too much on from your guy, Geno Smith. And I'm interested to see what the split is between Tyler Lockett, DK, and JSN as we continue to move forward in the year. But what are you looking for in this game, man?
All right, so let's start on the Detroit side. We talked on Engage 8 about the rushing game for Detroit and how it is so disproportionately being used at this point in time. I'm just gonna go out and say I think that this is. I know it's week 2, but I think that this could be the game, man. I do not trust the Seattle front to stop a guy like Jahmyr Gibbs in the open field, and we saw that he had a couple really nice runs that if he breaks 2 tackles, if he breaks 3, he's probably busting it out for a 50 or 60-yard run. Or, for example, he had a rush around the 15 where he was about to cut outside and his cleat was a little bit too short and falls out from under him, and ultimately he doesn't end up scoring, but he had that whole side of the field to himself. He just slips.
Yeah.
The thing with that theory is the whole reason why I think that they ran the hell out of David Montgomery last week was because they don't trust the Chiefs defense. And if you run the hell out of the ball with David Montgomery over and over again, eventually they're going to crack. Like with no Chris Jones there, the same way in Seattle with just nobody there. They're going to crack eventually. The passing offense for Detroit, I think, could be. I think this is going to be a really high scoring game. This is 2 defense. This is that we aren't too high on, even though they're on the up and up. But Seattle just allowed 30 points to Matt Stafford. Let's let that sink in. Matt Stafford is not the part that I'm worried about here. The part that I'm worried about is he allowed 30 points to a terrible offensive line.
Yeah, you couldn't get to the quarterback at
And
all.
the worst the worst group of playmakers probably in the NFL right now, regardless of how high we are on Puka Nacua and Tutu Atwell and Van Jefferson
Whoever.
at this moment. However, and also just want to form a rebuttal here for the people that'll say, well, they held Cam Akers to 29 yards on 22 carries. It's because Cam Akers sucks. That's why. It's because Cam Akers isn't good at football. That's part of our problem here.
And Kyron Williams actually had a decent game, Dude, 0 sacks? 0. I was kind of talking out of my ass there, but 0. That is terrible. I mean, we didn't think that the Seattle front was anything formidable, but dude, come on, man. You got to be able to get to Matt Stafford against one of the worst offensive lines we've seen in recent history. We'll say that. But I mean, we could have a little bit of heated debate on Gibbs and Montgomery real quick. I mean, this is my case. All right. You need a bruiser. You don't need a bruiser. Okay. You don't need.
You need a bruiser. You don't need a bruiser.
When you operate a running back by committee, then you usually got your guy that's explosive, catches passes, goes out wide, that sort of stuff. And then you got on the other side your bruiser, who is David effing Montgomery, man. He's a between the tackles guy. He's not sexy at all. 0. He's not going to look great on the football field. But, I mean, he is the Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins. That's a bad comparison. But, I mean, you could think of most backfields where it's one guy that runs between the tackles and the next guy goes and makes those explosive plays, man. And I don't think Gibbs is as efficient in between the tackles as a David Montgomery is, So if you're looking a guy to get you 2 to 3 yards in a stacked box, Montgomery's your guy. But Gibbs can do that, but I wouldn't rely on him to do that.
See,
what's your take?
That's my problem. At what point would you be looking for a guy to give you 2 to 3 yards in a stacked box? Throw the ball.
On the goal line? On the goal line.
Okay. Give him goal line touches. Don't give him 21 touches. Do not give him 21 touches. He cannot get 21 touches, especially in an offense where your pass game is good, but it's limited because they don't have the deep threat right now. They don't have any form of a deep threat. You need guys that can break tackles and turn 4-yard plays into 14-yard plays, 10-yard plays into 30-yard plays, because you don't have your Jamison Williams yet, and who knows, even if they get that guy this year, Jamison Williams might just not be a dude. I was looking on a popular Dynasty wide receiver rankings today. Guess who's right behind Jamison Williams? Puka Nacua.
Oh my God! Here we go.
Much more of a testament towards Jamison Williams and where his dynasty value's at as a fantasy player. That a guy comes in, has a couple catches for a team that doesn't have any options, and we're now talking about him in the same light as a guy who was picked 12th overall, was supposed to be the next coming of Christ.
And
to most people.
I wanted to trade for him this summer, and thank God I didn't. Because, I mean, it's just his stock. I mean, this was bound to happen. You know, like his stock was going to go down as we see guys play in the season, but it's not good. It's not good for this Lions offense.
What's the spread?
Yeah, let's dive into that. So let me take a look. I was looking at the lineup for them. Kenny Walker also went for.
I was about to say, real quick on the Seattle offense. I think Tyler Lockett is banged up as of right this second. Maybe not. I know he got checked for a concussion. He may be good to go. I'm not entirely sure. JSN didn't get a whole lot of work, but you know, as the third wide receiver in offense, it's kind of what you expect. It looks like it might be more of a contingency plan for Tyler Lockett as opposed to like we're going to use all three of these wide receivers equally right now. Zach Charbonnet got virtually no work last week. It was Kenny Walker. Like the whole thing was maybe, you know, Charbonnet, not a great pass catcher, but a little bit better of a pass catcher than Kenny Walker. Kenny Walker got 4 or 5 targets, I believe. So it looks like Charbonnet might not even be threatening him there. Again, we don't need to overreact to 1 week as far as what the usage is going to be for the rest of the season. We just saw Kenny Gainwell get a bunch of work and DeAndre Swift get 1 carry. And then when Kenny Gainwell's out, DeAndre Swift doubles Kenny Gainwell's carry number. So things can change throughout the course of 2 weeks, especially this early in the season.
Yeah, for sure. And especially with those running backs, like those rookie running backs. I mean, same case goes for Gibbs. Like, they'll get slowly incorporated into the offenses, and eventually they'll be all good to go. But, all right. So the spread in this one is Detroit -5. It's been going down since being at -5.5. Jeez. I mean, are we buying in on the Lions or not? Like, that's really the question here. I mean, they are at home, playing the home opener in a season which they have a lot of hope. It's going to be bumping in Ford Field. I want to go Seattle, but I'm going to go my guy MCDC. Let's go Lions.
I don't know, man. This is tough. This is 2 teams that I think are right around the same tier in the NFL. It's just a matter of how much stock you take into Seattle losing to the Rams, which we thought was one of the worst teams in the NFL. Looks like they're not going to be that. I think excuse me. I don't know what is going on.
Yeah, is it more of a testament to Seattle being bad, or more of a testament? Yeah, dude, what's going on? You need to shotgun a Monster Energy right now, dude. An IV drip going.
I can shotgun a Fanta for you. That's pretty much as far as I can go.
That doesn't sound fun. Neither of them sound fun, but continue.
Okay. But I think dude, oh my god. I think we underrated. There's got to be a trick to this or something. I think we underrated
text for the rest of the freaking podcast, dude.
I know. Stop. Just do it. I'll just stand here and yawn while muted. I think we underrated the McVay Stafford thing, but again, we're not talking about the Rams here. I don't know. I think Seattle can cover. I think I don't know.
I might, upon further investigation, I might take Seattle to cover because that is a fat spread. I mean, you're looking at
all right. What's the biggest? The Texans are
-1.5.
What's the biggest strength of each team? Seattle's, I think, is their receiving core. Can Detroit exploit that? Maybe. I don't know if they have the corners to do so.
Yeah, their secondary isn't. I mean, their interior is fine.
What's Detroit's biggest strength? Offensive line.
Yeah.
I don't think Seattle has the pass rushers to exploit that.
Dude, they're gonna Dude, Jared Goff is gonna have time. We talked about making sandwiches at one point. I mean, he's gonna have time to make
Yeah. Okay.
a charcuterie board,
Yeah,
as
that's true. Danzel
whatchamacallit
Smart.
from.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. But yeah, I'm gonna take Seattle on the spread, Detroit on the money line.
Yeah, I think I'm right there with you. I think that maybe we should use
Cool.
that more often when we're tight on a game. Just like, okay, what's each team's biggest strength?
That was actually good process, dude.
Yeah.
I'm with that. Okay. All right. Look at us. We're pretty much in unison.
Come
We
on,
got some
bro. I like that.
disagreements on Ravens Bengals. I like that. It's a good process, baby. All right, let's see if we can carry the same process. Probably won't have to when it comes to the Colts and the Texans. No, Chargers,
Damn it,
Tennessee.
man! I'm clicking all over the place looking for Colts Texans. You mother.
I'm sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself. I so badly want to talk about Houston and Indy playing this week at one
Wrong with
o'clock.
you?
I can't wait. But what should be a better game than that is Chargers Tennessee this week. The Chargers, man, like I've got some legitimate beef with the Chargers. I don't know what it is, and I'm sorry, Mitchell. Like I am, but
I
I
love
don't.
how everybody, whenever somebody, because when we had Sam on, he did the same thing. Whenever somebody has a gripe with the Chargers, they're like, "Oh, dude, Mitchell, I'm sorry, but blank." Like
Exactly,
he picked the
bro.
Dolphins. He was like, "Look, sorry, Mitchell, but we're gonna take the Dolphins."
Like you got to be conscious of Mitch because I know that Mitch is going to definitely watch this at some point. But dude, like I don't understand how you have that defense put together and you can't do a single thing with it, man. I mean, Tua threw for almost 500 yards, and Tyreek Hill helped a lot with that. That's for sure. But he didn't get sacked one time. And you have Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack coming off the edge. There was all this hype this summer about Joey Bosa being a whole new player this year and all that. Like they've got a retooled defense in general. I mean, you got J.C. Jackson back. And correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not looking at the lineup, but Eric Hendricks is back there as well. So you've got an improved linebacker core. There's no excuse. And Brandon Staley is a defensive head coach. He was a defensive coordinator, man. And the defense sucks. It's dog shit. And I'm starting to get upset here. I just don't know why Brandon Staley still has a job in the NFL. Point blank. Point
You know,
blank. And this defense needs to prove more this week, to say
so
the least.
I think because Mitchell texted me after the game and said, "Look, I feel a lot better about the Chargers after this game than I did coming into it because if you look at the way that they played offensively, there was a big stylistic contrast in what we've seen from the last 2 years. They ran the hell out of the ball, and they ran the hell out of the ball effectively. They used Austin Eckler. They used Josh Kelly. That's something that we have not seen from them in recent years where they effectively run the ball with more than one guy on, throughout the course of a very long game. They ran the ball a lot. They also had, they ran the ball more than they passed in that game as well. And the passing offense didn't even look that bad either. They were just so effective running the ball. Defensively, though, you have a point. Like, if you're like, yeah, you feel better about the offense, you feel worse about the defense, man. Joey Bosa, 65th of 68 PFF grade.
Yeah, dude,
in
I'm
week
looking
one.
at it right
Khalil
now. I'm
Mack,
looking at
same
the
thing.
lineup.
Khalil Mack has the I'm getting over the hill a little bit. I'm getting older excuse. Joey Bosa does not have that excuse. Doesn't. Joey Bosa needs to be playing like a top 8 edge rusher in the league because that's what he is, and that's what he's being paid to do.
Khalil Mack came in, and the big hype was that, like, oh my God, imagine all the attention he's going to take off Joey Bosa. Like, that's what it was. Like, we already knew when Khalil Mack was headed to the Chargers in the first place that he wasn't the Khalil Mack of old, and it was going to make Joey Bosa better. And Joey Bosa really hasn't gotten better, man. Like, what's going on? I mean, and then you look around at the rest of this defense. You were listening off. Derwin James, 46, 60.2 grade. J.C. Jackson, 77th corner of last week out of 83 corners. 45 grade.
And look, grades aren't everything, but the defense did not look good. Obviously, we know Tyreek is unstoppable. We know this offense, with the motion that they use and with Mike McDaniel and with Tua, is unstoppable. But 36 points, 500 passing yards, no sacks on Tua. There's nothing to look at and be happy about with this defense. Now, looking at this matchup in a vacuum, I think that they're able to exploit this a little bit more. Dolphins' offensive line isn't good, but they are so creative with their offensive play calling. Tennessee, not as creative. These tackles here are about as bad as they were in Miami last week, so hopefully we get a bounce back game from both of those edge rushers, Ed. We talked about J.C. Jackson and how he struggled on Tyreek Hill. I think he could have a much better game this week against a guy that's a much better matchup for him in DeAndre Hopkins. Same thing with Michael Davis. I think they'll use both of them on him as a bigger, not as fast guy. And honestly, they just could double DeAndre Hopkins all game and just be like, beat us another way. Just because, I mean, Hopkins has been through multiple quarterbacks and multiple offense. He is a target monster. If they just cover him up and allow him to get 6-7 targets, this is going to be a long game for Tennessee. Now, 2 years ago, this is a game where we're like, okay, this is upset alert type situation because Tennessee has, a guy that when he's playing at the peak of his powers is the best running back in the NFL, and this is one of the worst run defenses in the NFL. If we walk out of this game saying that the Titans won and that Derrick Henry had 150 yards, it's time to sound the alarm on the Chargers because not only did they look bad against a team that's worse than them, they're now sitting at 0-2. Granted, they don't have, the Chiefs probably going to be 1-1 by that point. We'll talk about that game in a little bit, but I'm not saying you're going to fire Brandon Staley after 2 weeks, but it's not a good start if you're starting 0-2 in this AFC with this team that, like we said about Buffalo, like we've said about Dallas, it's getting stale. You can't keep just running into the playoffs. I mean, they got Justin Herbert at his first playoff appearance last year. This is a guy that we talk about as a top 5 quarterback really since he's gotten into the league. So you really have to start making a push. You can't have these mental lapses. I think, as about of a must-win game as you can have in week 2, the Chargers are having it right now.
Seriously, man. And, I think a lot of the concern is already baked in. I mean, I think there's a lot of love for the Titans that I don't necessarily share. But the concern's kind of baked in because the spread is -3 for the Chargers. And I would expect them to be they are going on the road, but I would expect them to be a little bit higher. And, dude, I want to do it. I want to slam the panic alarm this early and say that the Titans are going to walk away with a win here. But you know what? I'm going to do it. I think the Titans win at home in Nashville against the Chargers this week, and then Brandon Staley has to start looking at homes elsewhere.
After this week.
Yes, correct.
So another sneaky thing to watch out for, because last week's game was in LA, if I'm not mistaken, right? They played, the Dolphins went to LA. So you've also got a West Coast team coming over to the East Coast for a 1 o'clock game. That's a 10 a.m. start for them.
Even better.
I think I'm taking the Titans as well. I think I will as well. I think Derrick Henry could pose some problems for them. He didn't have a fantastic game last week, but New Orleans will have those games throughout the course of a year, even when they're a little undermanned, where their defense looks really good. I don't know if I feel that way about the Chargers. And again, if this Chargers defense looks anything like it did last week, they're in trouble.
Yeah, I know. And it just makes me frustrated out of all because this Chargers team should be so good. And it's not because their coach holds them back. But I digress. We both think the Titans win this week, though, in Nashville. But let's move on and let's talk about, honestly, this shouldn't take us too long, Chicago, Tampa Bay this week. I mean, it'll be a fun game. I mean, there's definitely some concerns in Chicago, to say the least. I mean, I've got some Chicago fans around me up here in Lexington, and they're already saying things that the Commanders fans used to say. They want ownership out. Things aren't going to change until ownership is out. And when you're saying that, I mean, that's bottom of the barrel.
Yeah,
it's going to be bad.
That is, like, when you were telling me that the other day, that is, like, we are out of excuses. We need to blame ownership. It's now who doesn't have any reason to put the team together. This isn't baseball, man. Like they're not the ones putting the money forward here. It's you can't blame ownership for the bad parts of a football team unless they're doing like if it's 20 years. And granted, Chicago has not been the most successful franchise in 20 years, but they have gone to a Super Bowl recently, much more recently than the Commanders have. So. I don't know. I'll jump right into it. Tampa Bay, man. I'm starting to think that Tampa Bay might be a problem for teams because this defense can still play. They've still got guys on, and we talked about this. Man, look, if Baker can do this every week and he can be fired up Baker and ready to go Baker, and this offense is still here. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin's still here. Look, this offensive line is still a little bit of a problem, but my God, man, I'm a little bit bought in on Tampa Bay. I'm almost to the point where I'm ready to pull back my Atlanta NFC South pick a little bit, man. I
Ooh,
really, really
okay.
in on Tampa. I think that, and again, I know that this is super dangerous buying in on Baker Mayfield like this, especially after they win by 3
Hey,
points against
I,
a team that turned
I'm
the ball over as
notorious
much as
for
they
buying
did.
in on Baker. I said that remember when it was just like 2 years ago. I said he was like a top 10 quarterback, top
And the
five
crazy
quarterback.
thing, okay, if you said top five, you needed to be
Okay, top 10.
taken
I
out
think
back,
it is
but
top. That's fair enough.
top 10 quarterback in that year with Cleveland where he beat Pittsburgh in the playoffs, that wasn't insane. It really wasn't. And I may have grilled you for it at the time because I was mad, but it wasn't insane.
That's what I'm
And
saying, bro.
like
He's
he could have gotten
was a
there.
winner.
Like he was like one step away from getting into that conversation. Now he's fallen quite a few steps since then, and I think that that'll probably never happen now. But if just he can get the job done, I don't know. I think I'm getting a little crazy, but
I
I'll
don't
tell
think
you
you
this.
are getting
I'll tell you
crazy.
this.
I don't
I'm
think you
taking
are.
Tampa Bay in this game. I'll tell you that much.
Like, would you rather have? I mean, I probably would
Watch your
rather
words
have.
here.
Yeah, I probably would have rather have Brock Purdy than Baker Mayfield, but I think Baker Mayfield can win you a game by himself. Like, if he
Fired
really
up Baker.
tried,
Fired up Baker.
yeah. If he really tried, he could win a game by himself. But Brock Purdy could never do that or never come close to doing anything relatively close, you know. So
Dude, I'm telling you, I don't know if he's on that list that I talked about in the Ghost episode of, quarterbacks that could win an MVP if they played for the 49ers. But he's right on the out. Like he gets them to the playoffs. He gets them probably a playoff win or two, as
yeah,
long as
I mean,
he's staying level headed.
I don't know why he didn't end up in San Fran in the first place. Like I feel like not in the first place, but after
Yeah.
Cleveland, like why didn't he bounce over to San Fran for
I
a little bit?
mean,
I feel like
that
that would have
was
been a nice fit.
right when they drafted Lance, I think, or maybe the year after. No, it was I literally drank.
Dude, this guy.
I went to lunch and I drank a Mountain Dew so I could get this pod because I can't do energy drinks because my heart will explode. But I could do like a Mountain Dew, get some caffeine rolling in me.
Well, it sounds like you're gonna have to sacrifice a heart attack for you to be
I
awake
know.
on the
And the thing
podcast.
is, I'm like
So
fired up, dude. I'm yelling, I'm screaming, I'm jumping all out of my seat. I'm just yawning the
he's
entire
trying.
time.
He's trying. He's trying. But for the most part, I agree with you for sure. I mean, I agree with you 100%. The Bucks also, the defense looked really good last week. I mean, Vikings put up a lot of points on Thursday Night Football. Did not do the same thing at home against the Bucks last week. So gotta love that. And I mean, if this defense can do their part with that, they have been doing their part. And the weapons, I mean, dude, Godwin, Evans, you've got a squad here. And I personally did nice little buy-in on Tampa last night with between me and you when we did the trade. I traded for Mike Evans and Rashad White in the same trade, so I guess I'm all bought in on the Bucks. And if the vibe in Chicago right now is that they just need to get rid of their owner after week one, then yeah, I'll take the Bucks -3.
And real quickly, I'll touch on the Chicago side, man. This Justin Fields thing. I mean, we talked about it.
Yeah,
It was fun watching him run the ball and make magical plays with his legs. He's not a good passer of the football. And for all the people that invested in him for fantasy and for dynasty, man, the rushing stuff's great, and I understand that you don't need the passing stuff for him to be a good fantasy quarterback. But what if he's so bad as a passer that he gets sat down or he gets replaced for dynasty people? He gets replaced here in Chicago. I mean, they had their chance and they didn't take it. And I think even though Bryce Young did not play very well on Sunday, I think that they're ultimately going to regret that decision. And I think they're just as, just right in there with maybe not with Arizona because they've got two shots, but, they're definitely, I think they're in front of a team like Tampa Bay now. The point where they're right in this Caleb Williams sweepstakes, man. Like they could 100% find themselves at number one again with a chance to take Caleb Williams. And I don't think that they're going to make the same mistake twice.
yeah. And it's ridiculous because they literally just brought in a new house, man. They got a new GM,
Brought
new
in a
head
new
coach, new
house.
yeah, like you brought in the new house. You got a nice bougie house to live in, and you can't do shit with it. I mean, I don't understand in Chicago, man. It's like literally what Commanders fans used to say. I mean, just new ownership. That's the only default that you can fall back on now. We'll see if Justin Fields can live up to the promise that he gave everyone that he was going to go for 3,500 yards and break the Bears passing record, but that does
Which
not
is
look
like an
good
average
today.
season for Kirk Cousins, by the
Yeah,
way.
precisely. Precisely. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and take the Bucks. You are as well. So let's move on from there and let's dive into Jacksonville and Kansas City. Got a fun one on the slate here. Kansas City coming off of a loss without Travis Kelce on Thursday night. So we'll see how that plays out. We'll see how the dropping situation in Kansas City continues to go. But the big news here is Chris Jones finally back with the team on his big record deal, or not record deal, but he did sign a pretty big deal to come back to Kansas City just for a year. But you have that security. You know you're going to have him for this year. So what are you thinking about this game, man? What are you excited to watch? I mean, Jacksonville was also pretty good last week. I mean, Indy had him on the ropes for a little bit, but T-Law wasn't wasn't too bad. Yeah.
So I'll touch on the Chris Jones deal real quick. Kind of a wasted holdout, if I'm going to be honest with you, man. Like, so he was on a 4-year, $80 million contract before, and I believe it is a $20 million. It was $20 million for this year. Now it is a 1-year 25, but it's with incentives. And if I was looking at the incentives, and a lot of the incentives were like, it was over, I think it was over $5 million in incentives, which is the difference in his contract. So, I mean, obviously, Chris Jones is a guy that with 16 games can get to those incentives. Like, like we said, was probably the best player on the interior from last season. So you're not worried about him hitting those incentives. Those are incentives that he should be able to hit, and he should get this $25 million as long as he stays healthy. But it's just a matter of you missed a game, your team lost a game for, just to add some incentives onto your contract, and they can still franchise tag him next year. They did not put a clause, like we've seen the running backs do that. Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs put clauses in their contracts to the point where they could not be franchise tagged again. It's either a long-term deal with the team that they're currently with or a long-term deal with somebody else. That they could just franchise tag Chris Jones again, which would honestly be the smart thing to do. Even though, they don't really get that advantage anymore with the interior D-line market inflating as much as it did this past offseason. But just to move back over to the game as a whole, the main matchup that I'm looking for here is Chris Jones versus this Jaguars interior offensive line. It is not a pretty unit by any stretch. Brandon Scherff got banged up in last week's game. I think Chris Jones could have a nice little coming out party and hey, I'm worth that contract that you just gave me game here where, he could impact this win significantly. Then on the offensive side for Kansas City, look, they scored 20 points. They lost by 1 point to a team that scored a defensive touchdown, and they probably overall had one of the worst receiving pass catching games that we've seen from a team in a very long time. Kadarius Toney literally had the worst wide receiver grade game in 6 years. Sky Moore also had some serious problems for them. So you got to imagine that it just doesn't happen like that again. Like, that cannot happen again in Kansas City. Luke Fortner, also for Jacksonville's interior offensive line, is questionable. So Chris Jones could be wreaking havoc there.
Guy.
Yeah, on the Jaguars' offensive side, though, I mean, you got to be excited about what you saw last week, especially from Travis Etienne, man. He looked great, put together a full-sized RB1 workload, had 18 carries, 5 targets, and a touchdown. He looked fantastic. Another guy looked fantastic for this Jaguars offense is Calvin Ridley. The way that he played, there were some questions about whether it was going to be him or whether it was going to be like this Christian Kirk fella. I mean, who the hell is that? As the wide receiver one here in Jacksonville. And, I mean, Calvin Ridley made that point very apparent that it is him. I will say, maybe temper expectations just on him, and maybe it leaks back to the median a little bit, because that Colts secondary, Kenny Moore is the best player on that group. He does play slot corner. He was playing Christian Kirk that entire game, and their perimeter corners are terrible. So Calvin Ridley was able to have a day because of that. So just something to watch for there. But overall, I think this is going to be a pretty evenly matched game. Kansas City is favored by 3. I think that they bounce back, and I think I'm going to take them on the money line and the spread. But it's not. I think Jacksonville will keep it within a touchdown for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And I totally agree. Spread here is -3. I'm definitely going Kansas City as well. I mean, you got Travis Kelce back, and I mean, Dude, we've tried to play this game for multiple. I mean, we played it all last year. Like, who is the wide receiver that's going to step up in Kansas City? It's
There
nobody.
isn't one. It's
Yeah,
not going to
it's
happen.
nobody.
And
Nope.
also, one more thing to watch here. God bless you if you invested. I know you can't invest too high in Isaiah Pacheco, but he hasn't buried Clyde Edwards-Helaire yet. And if he hasn't
No.
buried him, not to mention Jerick McKinnon's still here to catch passes, man. This is a three-headed monster. They're each going to get 33% of the snap share.
Yep.
It's I don't
No.
want anybody on this Chiefs offense, at least fantasy-wise, that isn't named Patrick Mahomes or Travis Kelce. I want nothing to do with them.
Yeah, and I'm with that. I'm totally with that point. I mean, I like to buy NCH at cost. I definitely like to do it. I'd like to do it before the season. I mean, it's gone up a
I was
little
about to say,
bit.
if you're in a 16-teamer, maybe I'd be willing to.
Yeah.
Other than that, I
I
don't know
mean,
if I'm
last
adding
pick of
him.
the draft is what I'm talking about. And
He's the third
honestly,
running back on a team that doesn't run the ball.
but he looked good last week. Like, he looked good. He did look good, and I know you don't want to say it, but he did look good.
Stop.
And we want to bury, we just want to call the 24-year-old running back, by the way, who was drafted in the first round. No, he's 23. He's 23, dude. So, like, we're talking about a 23-year-old running back drafted in the first round that's just dead, completely done. Like, no, man. Like, there's signs of life there, and I'll take him with the last pick. And I thought he did look pretty good last week. But for fantasy, it's going to frustrate everybody. This backfield
Oh,
isn't worth investing in.
one more thing. We'll be
Yeah.
watching this Jaguars edge duo against this pair of tackles here in Kansas City. We saw how rough Donovan Smith and Jawan Taylor were last week against Aiden Hutchinson, really just by himself. I mean, the memes were flying for Jawan Taylor lining up at running back for them. Never got called until like the last snap of the game, dude. Josh Allen could have a monster game here, as could Trayvon Walker.
Yeah, Trayvon Walker. I mean, it could be against the Chiefs. It could be a little bit of like if he has 3 sacks here, it could be a coming out party for Trayvon Walker after he was
Yeah.
drafted #1 overall at one point. But let's move on from Chiefs Jags and let's dive into Indianapolis
There you
and
go.
the Texans, the one that I've been so looking forward to diving into, man. But to be real, let's keep this short and sweet. This is going to be the battle of the rookie quarterbacks. That'll be fun. I mean, Anthony Richardson had a really nice game last week, man. I mean, he threw a touchdown pass through the air, got one on the ground. He was 233 yards through the air, only one pick, which you like to see because that was a big concern for him coming out of college. 10 carries, 40 yards on the ground with that touchdown that I mentioned. Haven't really figured out who his #1 is going to be. I mean, Michael Pittman had 11 targets, 97 yards, so gotta love that. But I'm going to go ahead and take the Colts because they were in it with Jacksonville last week for a little bit. Surprisingly, Texans are favored -1.5 right now.
At home.
Yeah, okay. All right, respectable.
I'm also holy fuck, dude. The Colts defensive grades were nuts last week. I just want to touch. I know we've moved on from Jaguars Chiefs, but remember I said that Chris Jones could wreak havoc on the interior of Kansas City, or on the interior of Jacksonville. The interior of Jacksonville played Indianapolis last week. DeForest Buckner was #1 in PF grade. Grover Stewart was #2 in PFF grade.
Oh wow, dude! Oh
among
man.
defensive tackles, both graded at 90s. So Chris Jones could have
a
a
long
day.
season.
A day.
Oh my God.
But back to this game, man. Anthony Richardson, we talked about that trade you made earlier with somebody for Mike Evans and Rachaad White. That somebody got Anthony Richardson, and that somebody is me. You see I'm wearing my Colts blue this morning. I'm excited. I'm excited for Anthony Richardson here. It's a double QB dynasty league, so I am over the moon. I'm sure you've heard, if you've watched this podcast and like you've heard me talk about Anthony Richardson at some point, man. I love that kid. I just don't think there's any way where he isn't special. Like, special.
Man, you don't have to talk about him this
Like
way.
Cam Newton, Josh Allen, special.
Hey, come on! Not the Cam Newton. Not the Cam Newton, bro. That's an attack.
Didn't grade out super last week for sure, but he did throw an interception. So he, if he cleans that up, I definitely think that he has a bounce back game this week against Houston, which we saw Baltimore sleepwalk their way to 25 points last week. And the same, I mean, they didn't have super big problems with Lamar, but they're going to be facing a similar type of running style quarterback that they faced last week in Baltimore. But Indianapolis,
I
Michael
mean,
Pittman
best
had a solid.
performance out of any quarterbacks or any rookie quarterbacks last week. So
Yeah,
gotta like
and
that.
like we said, this is the battle of the rookie quarterbacks. This is the battle we're going to be seeing once again at some point this season. Um, I'm taking Indy in this one. I have too much faith in five, man. I love him.
Yeah, I'm with it. I'm with it. I mean, this Colts defense also can hold its own. So after what we
Surprisingly, very good, especially because they have some holes, and we saw those holes get exposed last week on the perimeter at corner. But
yeah,
dude, Kwity Paye had a good week last week, which we
still
haven't
got
seen from
Shaq
him in a little bit. You
Leonard.
got Shaq Leonard there as well. Um, God, what is his name? Is it Jameer Franklin?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Zaire Franklin. He
Okay.
was fantastic last week, as was EJ Speed, man. This is, and again, this may be Jacksonville just playing, but dude, EJ Speed, 94 grade last week. Zaire Franklin, 92 grade. They had four guys grading the 90s on that defense, man. This is a defense that we had somewhere in the low 20s. So
Yeah.
things are looking up in Indy, man. We might have somebody challenging Jacksonville for this division. I'm afraid to say.
Oh, I think that's a little hasty.
I'm just saying, man. All they gotta do is get 8 or 9 wins. That's all they
All
gotta
they
do.
gotta do is win 8 or 9 football games. You're
That's
right. I
it.
mean, that is a fact. That is true. I will say before we move on, Texans wide receivers John Mechie and Tank Dell. We were kind of looking forward to seeing what they could do in the regular season. They kind of laid a dud, man. I don't think Mechie got any sort of work
I
at
don't
all.
know. I don't know who said it or if I saw a tweet or something that was talking about how underrated the Texans wide receivers are. And I'm like, did you watch the same thing that we watched on Sunday? I think they're very
Yeah,
properly rated here. They're really bad.
exactly. Like they had to rely on Robert Woods in that game. And when you got to rely on a very old Robert Woods, which they were going to do in the first place, but they couldn't turn to a Tank Dell, a John Mechie that we thought they might.
And I think
And
Mechie got. He may not have played if I'm. Yeah,
yeah,
no,
I
he
think
he
he
didn't
might have been
play.
out.
I think he was hurt. So, yeesh. I mean,
Yeah.
Nico
I mean,
Collins
Tank Dell
played.
was
Nico
probably going to get more
Collins.
work. Yeah, Nico Collins got
Yeah.
a lot of work for sure. But I mean, dude, like Tank Dell was supposed to be maybe that guy, and he only got what 3 targets, I believe, something like that.
Also, Damian Pierce didn't see a whole lot out of him in week one. Granted, that's a good Baltimore run defense, but for
Kind of
those that
sinky.
were excited about him,
Yeah. But
maybe
point of me
temper.
saying all that is that the young receivers in Indy, aka Josh Downs, looks pretty good, man. AKA Reggie Wayne's best receiver coming out of the draft. I always love to say that because I have him in Dynasty, so we'll see what happens. But
I love like how like put our fantasy league into this as if anybody fucking cares.
yeah, they've never cared, bro.
Not
They've
once.
not. We've been doing this for many years now, man, and they've never given a shit. But hey, we relate to you. We have fantasy teams, just like everybody else does. Come on. Actually, I have 5 of them, and I suck in all of them. But let's continue.
He's right.
So now we've got San Fran and the Rams on the docket next up. This should be a pretty interesting one to say the least, man, because we thought that the Rams were completely dead, and that's clearly not the case, man. I mean, Matthew Stafford is doing his thing. This offensive line can at least hold their own with Matt Stafford not getting sacked one time. So gotta love that. And either way, though, San Fran, I mean, looked awesome in week one. The Rams looked awesome as well. I mean, these are two of the week one like big winners, wouldn't you say?
Oh yeah, I mean, you could very well make an argument that these are the two biggest week one winners, and it's from two different sides of the spectrum. We had the 49ers at 4, we had the Rams at 31. The 49ers somehow were winners in a week where they're already at the top. The Rams made a huge jump. Not really in our rankings because that's not really our style, but for a lot of people, I mean, hell, I saw them jump back into the top half of the league after one win against Seattle. Overreaction week one, so I get it. Um, the offensive line for the Rams, it held up against a very bad Seattle pass rush last week. That's not the case this week. They have dudes up and down this roster in San Francisco. Everybody knows that. Nick Bosa, Javon Hargrave, Eric Armstead, Drake Jackson looked great. Clelin Ferrell had limited snaps, but he looked pretty good. The defense was fantastic. This Rams offense, though, I think, again, as long as Stafford's healthy, they can produce. Like, they can put points on the board. Um,
Absolutely.
you do really worry about San Francisco's offense up against this Rams defense because it still is just Aaron Donald. a bunch of NPCs is the way that I've been hearing it be described. And
Yeah,
that for that reason, I will be taking. Oh my God, the Rams are plus 7.5
I
at
know.
home.
Dude, I might
McVay is
do it.
7.5
No
points.
Nakua though. No Puka
Seven,
Nakua.
yeah.
Didn't practice today, so
And again, this is
that doesn't look great.
we're recording this on Friday afternoon, so maybe we get an injury report on Saturday. But yeah, if he's not there, I mean, I can't believe I'm saying this, but if fucking, yeah, if Puka Nakua is not there, the Rams' offense is in trouble.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, that's valid, bro. Like Puka Nakua was hyped up a lot throughout the offseason. I grabbed him in a couple of leagues right before the season
I've
started,
got
so I'm
no
happy about
shares.
that.
I've got no shares. I'm a little upset
Yeah.
about it.
I made it. I did. I picked him up a couple days before the season started, which was kind of dope. But yeah, I mean, if Puka Nakua is not here, you're looking at Tutu Atwell and Tyler Higbee. Then you can always turn to the run game, but no, you can't because you have Kyron Williams and Cam Akers.
Hey, you have Cam Akers. Kyron Williams looks like he might be a solid fellow here for the
He got
Rams.
in the end
He got in
zone
the end zone
twice.
twice. I get it, but give
Whatever.
him more work. There's no way he's more inefficient than Cam Akers. There's no way.
That's fair. Okay. But yeah, I'm going to take the 49ers on the spread and the money line, just like you will. So let's keep on rolling through the matchups that we got here. And the next one we got to talk about. God, I'm so mad at this team. Giants and Cardinals, man. Goodness gracious, dude. I don't know, dude. I might take the Cardinals out of spite. Because, like, I don't know if the seed now, it's like now I'm getting all the emotions because the Commanders played the Cardinals last week, and the Cardinals looked really good at the Commanders. So is that a testament to the Commanders being bad or the Cardinals being good? And what happened to the Giants scoring 0.0 points on Sunday Night Football, dude? I don't understand it at all. It was a joke. It was a laughing stock. It was the most embarrassing performance on Sunday Night Football that anybody has ever seen with their own two eyes. So, with all of that being said, I really don't know, man. I'm going to let you take it away and see if I pick up a vibe from you.
Okay, so while it's fun to jump on the Giants at this moment in time, they had a defensive touchdown scored against them. They had they had a blocked kick for a touchdown scored against them, and it was raining. The wheels just completely fell off against a really good Dallas team and a really good Dallas defense. They're now going from what I would tell you now, especially after what I just saw last week, overreaction week 1, blessed be thy name.
Thank you, man.
Be the worst defense in the NFL in Arizona. They were able to put pressure on Sam Howell, but again, I think that's much more of a testament to Washington than it is to Arizona. I'm just not ready to I'm not ready to do. Am I ready? Maybe. I don't know.
I know, because it was too bad to like say that was a throwaway the tape game. Like it was just like there is serious problems in New York, man. I mean, they couldn't get anything going. Despite the defensive touchdown scored, you still turned it over. You still turned it over like a bunch of dumb dummies. Like I don't understand, bro. Like I really don't.
Did
Like I
you
really want to
know?
look at the PFF grades, but what were you saying?
Did you know that John Michael Schmitz is a junior? John Michael Schmitz Jr. is his name.
Wow. Okay.
This is important. I think that honestly moves the line by at least a half point. Things that will move the line by at least a half point. Darren Waller is still questionable with a hamstring injury, so you got to keep an eye on that if you are, looking to bet on this game. Because without him, the pass catching options are Saquon Barkley, which is obviously a good one. After that, it moves to Isaiah Hodgins, Darius Slayton, and Paris Campbell. Panic. Yes. Andrew Thomas also questionable in this one. James Conner also questionable in this one. Again, this is recorded on Friday, so we don't really have a strong verdict one way or the other. This is just probably based off of practice reports.
I'm gonna take the Giants just because I'll look like a dumbass taking the Cardinals. But dude, like it's not good. I mean, Danny Dimes ranked 41.6, 31 out of 32 quarterbacks last week. I mean, anybody with two eyes could have told you that. This offensive line, not one guy had a grade higher than 62.1. The highest graded guy was Andrew Thomas, and he finished 40th out of 64 tackles, which still sucks. So I'm
Do
going to
I
take the
think
Giants, but I feel so disgusting about it. You know what? I'm going to take the Cardinals in the spread, Giants in the money
that's
line.
what I was going to say? Do I think the Cardinals can cover at
4 points.
home? 4 points is kind of close.
Hey, you bet against their spread last week and it bit you in the ass. Let's do it. Come on. Be in unison. Come on. It's the birds. The red
You know
birds.
what? Cardinals are going to win this game.
Ooh,
Cardinals are going to win this
dude.
game. Dude, Jonathan Gannon.
Oh,
Jonathan Gannon's got them boys with fire in their gut. They took the bus in today. Nope. Everybody on that Cardinals defense sold their car. They're taking the bus in every day. They're
dude.
taking the bus in.
Oh, man.
Cars are being sold. The Arizona car market is, skyrocketing or plummeting because of all the cars that are being put into circulation because of all of the Arizona Cardinals selling their cars. Everybody's taking the bus in.
Okay. All right.
They just it's literally a school bus that just goes around Arizona and picks up all the Cardinals players.
That's the only reason I've heard behind the Cardinals winning is that they're taking the bus in. I mean,
That's literally all the reasoning I have. Do not take this is not betting advice.
they're taking the bus in, man. It's already panic time in New York, and I mean, if they lose to the Cardinals, it is DEFCON 5.
Now
But
I'm gonna cover my ass here. If the Giants win, it's because Dayball's a better coach. Like that's the one thing that like when I was letting it go out of my mouth, I was like, Dayball could just outcoach the hell out of this team.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
maybe I'm getting a little whimsical here, but Cardinals are gonna win a game at some point this year. Like they're not gonna go 0-17.
No,
They're at home
they
here.
aren't.
Just maybe.
It's scary.
Who knows?
It's scary. All right, let's roll through these last group of games that I got because I actually have to get to work at my job. But I'm excited, not really, to talk about Jets Cowboys. Oh man, dude. Ugh. Yeah, I mean we had a lot of healthy debate on the Cowboys, and we could definitely revisit it because I'm sure the Cowboys will kick the shit out of the Jets
This
at
fella.
4:25 on Sunday. I mean, I'm taking the Cowboys, and I mean, Jets have no Zach Wilson, dude. I mean, Zach Wilson is the starter. That is the storyline in this game. So, like, I mean, Zach Wilson's gonna suck it up, and the Cowboys defense is gonna look like the Bears, like the classic Bears defense. I mean, that's what's gonna happen.
I mean,
Again.
that's what they are, really. I mean, I know that went over your head this offseason, but that is more or less what they are. It does look like Zach Wilson is going to be the starting quarterback for the rest of this year. I do have the headline is expected to start. I really meant expected to start for the rest of this year, but couldn't fit that in the box. So, yeah, it just kind of feels like
honestly, he's not. He might be replaced. I mean, they've been making calls about free agent quarterbacks. So
yeah, I honestly think that there's some oh, they probably should be making calls, which means they're probably making calls, which means I'm gonna report that and
yeah.
the Jets are making calls. Who are they making calls about? I have no idea, but they're making calls. Don't worry.
Due diligence.
Yeah.
You know?
But the thing is, like, in this AFC, with these quarterbacks that you've got here, just in your division, you've got Josh Allen and Tua. In the North, you've got Burrow, you've got Watson, you've got Lamar. Is the difference between Zach Wilson and Gardner Minshew really going to get the job done? Is the difference between Zach Wilson and the Matt Ryan that we saw last year going to make a whole lot of difference? Is the difference between Zach Wilson and Jameis Winston really going to move the needle? Especially with a team like this, that could find themselves at 7 or 8 wins with this, how good this defense is. They just stole a win from Buffalo after, Aaron Rodgers played 4 snaps in that game. I mean, crazier things have happened than this Jets team being able to go on a run. I mean, they put together 7 wins last year. Their defense, I think, is better this year. And you're probably going to have Breece Hall for a full season, who we saw, he could be like Steve Palazzolo said that he could be like Dalvin Cook was 3 to 4 years ago, where it's like he's good for a 50 or 60-yard run every fucking game. Like every game, he's going to give you that one where it's just like, well, there's the drive right there. There goes Breece Hall.
Dude, he looked so good in week 1, man. Yeah, and it makes me sick.
He looks fantastic. He was a guy that I was very high on last season. Only had him for a little bit of time, and then he tears his ACL. So that blows. But
Womp.
Yeah. He looked good. So, look, man, if Zach Wilson just doesn't do the stupid shit Just keep the mental mistakes, like kind of like what the Rams did with Goff towards the end of his time there, where it's like, okay, you're going to throw the ball 30 times. You're going to have like half of them are going to be screens, half of them are going to be rollouts, and that's just what we're going to do. Like, you're going to be so limited in your decision making processes. Like, everything is going to be set up for you. You're going to have one read on every play. Now against Dallas, that might not work because this Dallas defense is going to be a dominant force. Let's just say the least. I mean, my Michael Parsons Defensive Player of the Year pick, I know that he didn't put up the box score stats that a guy like TJ Watt or even a guy like Myles Garrett did last week, but if he is the best defensive player, if he has an argument for best defensive player on the planet, on the best defense on the planet, he's going to be, looking good for that award.
Yeah.
Now the question becomes, what is this Dallas offense going to do? Now, like, do I think that it's going to be worse than the Jets offense to make this game, swing one way or the other? That's the question. But we didn't get to see anything out of Dak Prescott. We didn't get to see anything really out of Tony Pollard. The rest of this offense with the new McCarthy offense, we didn't get to see what it could be. Now this week we can get to see what it be, and
that's one way to put it. What it could be,
dude. What we didn't get to see anything of what it could be. But
you're talking about it as if it's going to be a great, like, magical, whimsical offense. Do you think it's going to be that?
You got to go to work, Kane. Come on, you got to go to work.
Okay.
You have a very good chance of coming in here with your victory lap. If Dak throws 2 picks next week or this week against a good Jets defense, you can come in here doing backflips, do whatever the hell you want, because there's a solid chance of that happening. But best fucking believe if Dallas comes in and their offense scores 25, 28 points, oh my God,
that's gonna be a dark day. That's gonna be a dark
day. I will go to the post office and demand that jersey that I just sold back. Bring it back to my house. I want it back so I can wear it on the Monday show.
Take it from the customer.
Yeah, I will drive to Texas and steal it from Reginald. And
hey, out and customer information.
Not his last name or his.
Jeez Louise. But yeah, I mean, I'm going to take Dallas in this game because why wouldn't they win this game? But it'll be fun to watch the Jets defense in this one. Put the work on Dak Prescott because I really do think that that's going to happen. Leonard, they had 1, 2, 3 guys grade out in the top 6 last week on the defensive side. Sauce Gardner did not play a very good game. He finished 44th out of 83 corners last week, 61.7 grade, and I thought he looked even worse than that according to the eye test. But yeah, I'm taking Cowboys on the spread and the money line just because of the embarrassment that they did to the Giants last week.
What did Derek Stingley grade out at last week? Just out of curiosity. Just out of curiosity.
Jeez, man. All right. Let's roll through these last couple.
Yeah, no, good idea.
Okay, so we got Commanders, Broncos on the. No, I'm tripping now.
No, you're right. You're good.
Okay, all right, sweet. So Commanders, Broncos ahead of us. 425 window spread, and this one is Denver -3.5. And dude, I'm gonna take Denver in this one on the spread and the money line. I mean, we talked about it on the Ghost episode. What I saw out of the Commanders against a really, really bad Cardinals team that we ranked the worst in football, correct? 32 out of 32 teams? Yeah. So we looked really bad against them in week 1. I thought it was going to be a nice tune-up game. We did win the game, but it should have been handedly. This offensive line is a problem, and this is a Denver defense that's pretty good. So we're going to run into some issues, man. Here we go again. Here we go again in Commie Land, man. I think Sam Howell showed some flashes of some stuff last week. He had a nice sidearm pass into the end zone, but it was like 10 yards, 5 yards into the end zone. But I got to look forward to the little things. Am I right, man? So what are you watching for, and who you got in this game?
Yeah, I mean, who's going to do everything they can to not have this on their television screen? This guy. I don't want to watch this game. I'm going to have to because we got to do an episode on Monday. But my God, I have no interest in watching this fucking game. On the Denver
worst
side,
game of the week, probably.
Oh, yeah. Giants, Cardinals maybe gives it a run for its money. Bears, Bucks maybe gives it a run for its money. But at least there's narratives in that game. There's, something we can pull for. Colts, Texans has the rookies. God. These are 2 teams that independently, I don't want to watch. I don't like watching the
Yeah.
Commanders. I don't like watching the Broncos. Um, it looked like the same shit from both of them. Like we talked about it in the Ghost episode. Same old, same old. It feels like the same old shit in Washington. It feels like the same old shit in Denver from last year. The offense didn't look different. The whole Sean Payton revelation did not materialize in Denver, at least in week one against a pretty average Raiders defense. I don't
They
know.
also didn't have Jerry Jeudy. Jerry Jeudy's coming back for the Broncos this
Yeah,
week, so I really like
but
that.
like I don't
I mean,
think
they
that's
passed the
gonna.
ball to 11 different players,
That surprised me
and
because I really thought that Marvin Mims would be getting a little bit more work, especially if he's you know out there and healthy, and nobody else is. If Jerry's Judy's not there, Tim Patrick's not there. Marvin Mims got 2 targets. I was really excited for that one. Um, you
me
know,
too.
I was very surprised by that. You flip around to the Commanders' offense. Terry McLaurin didn't get a whole lot of work. Just be on the lookout here. A little fantasy DFS thing to look out for. If we saw last week, Devontae Adams did get the Patrick Surtain assignment, and Patrick Surtain played very well. Kept Devontae Adams pretty far, or pretty much under wraps. On the other side of Patrick Surtain is Damari Mathis, who graded out 83rd of 83 corners last week. Because he was guarding Jacoby Myers. Jacoby Myers had a great day.
If you carry the one and
Yes.
you do some quick mental math,
Yeah, and
that
you
is
really
the worst
like
corner.
grunt. That's
in the
really
league.
not good. And I don't think that's really a testament to how good Jacoby Myers is. I think Damari Mathis is a problem. I think we got some comments.
A
either on
problem in the
Broncos-
wrong way.
Yeah. I think we got some comments either from on the YouTube video or on the Instagram post about Damari Mathis about how he could, be a liability, and he looked like that in week 1. So look out for Jahan Dotson this week, because he is a pretty competent wide receiver too in his own right. If he can go out there and he gets that matchup, he could have a nice little day, as Jacoby Myers did last week. If you have him, I'd definitely be looking to start him for fantasy purposes. I do think that I'm going to have the Broncos win this game and cover. I think that Washington is. Oh, I read that wrong. I thought Washington was 3.5 point favorite. I was like, what?
No.
Yeah, I just think Commanders going up to altitude. I don't think Sam Howell's ever played in Denver, so I think. Yeah, I think I'm going to go with Denver in this.
I don't even want to really talk about it, because it's just like I am so disappointed that that offense should at least look better. I mean, can we see the signs of life from Bieniemy this week is really what I'm keeping an eye out for. I mean, we brought him in. He was supposed to be the savior. I love how he's getting on all of our guys all the time, but we love it because we're hard workers and we're going to be better this year. Bullshit. Didn't happen in week 1. Yeah, I don't even know what they took, and they took a fucking tricycle in last week against the Cardinals, and they'll probably do the same thing against the Broncos. But I digress. Let's move on to Sunday Night Football, and let's hammer these out. I'm sorry. And it should be a pretty good game, though. Dolphins-Patriots. The spread is -3 for the Dolphins, which I would think it would be more after the trouncing that they put. Well, not trouncing, really. Their defense was letting up a decent amount. But the Patriots' offense is not as potent as the Chargers' offense was last week. Mac Jones looked good last week, man. I mean, he threw over 300 yards, threw for 3 touchdowns, I believe. So that's a really solid game from Mac Jones for sure. I mean, we could see a resurgence from him this year, but I don't think that we see it necessarily in this game. So I'm going to take the Dolphins on the spread, the money line. Tyreek Hill doing his thing.
Yeah, that's kind of my thing. I will say New England outplayed Philadelphia for 3 quarters last week. Philadelphia put together a really good first quarter. They got, I believe, 2 defensive touchdowns or 2 touchdowns off of turnovers. But I don't know, man. New England also does not have Tua's number. Tua is undefeated against the Patriots in his NFL career. So definitely something to watch for there if he can keep that streak up. We are going, this is a Miami team going to Foxborough to play. I know it's September, so it's going to be like 50 degrees there as opposed to, 20. But
you remember the shirt that Tua wore? I love the cold. Or what? Yeah. It was something like that.
He's so weird, man. He's so weird. I don't.
Yeah. Just a little bit.
But
he throws for 500 yards in a football.
Yeah, so. I don't know if New England has a guy for this, for New England, or for Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, because they can do everything they want, and if there's one thing that New England does best, it's take away your best thing. Bill Belichick has faced Tyreek Hill a handful of times. All those, the early Patrick Mahomes years, the Patriots Chiefs were like, that was the AFC rivalry for a few years. So he's seen Tyreek Hill. He knows what Tyreek Hill isn't good at. But the Dolphins also have Jalen Waddle, who can do a lot of the same things. So, what is the line? What's the line?
-3. Miami.
I wish it was 3.5. Not that that's any different. I just feel
bad. It opened at Miami -2.5.
Okay. You know what? I think New England covers.
Okay. And I can get with that. I think the way that Mac Jones played last week, I mean, dude, can he have a season this year where he proves himself worthy of that first-round pick?
Yeah, I mean, I think Bill O'B might be like, there's a big difference between him and Matt Patricia as an offensive play caller, and I think we saw that last week, and especially, he's got the chemistry a little bit with Mac Jones. He, not chemistry per se, but he got familiar with a lot of the concepts that Mac Jones ran in Alabama when he went to coach at Alabama. Kind of was able to take Saban's playbook. I'm sure Saban, allowed Bill O'Brien to pick his brain a little bit on what they were running at Alabama. So I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm a little bit of a believer in this Patriots offense. And if this Patriots defense can do what they're known to do, I think they could cover. I do think Miami still ends up winning the game, though.
Yeah, I agree. But I did like a lot of what I saw from the Pats offense and the Pats in general last week. So, gotta say
also, if Miami wins this game, like if they do another 500 yards passing, 35 plus points, we might need to start talking about the Dolphins as the best team in the NFL. If they do it against this Patriots defense.
And if Tua, I mean, he's going to be, if they have a great game again, he's going to be ahead of the MVP ladder again. And all the Tua talk that I've said on this podcast, screaming from the rooftops for years, literally years, is going to come to fruition. Which could be awesome. But all right, let's dive. I wish I could spend more time on these games, but we're going to recap them on Monday anyway. Saints Panthers, real quick. I'm going to go. Nah. In Carolina, I'm going to go, you know what? It's Saints -3. I'm going to go Carolina on the spread and the money line. I think that they have a bounce back at home, first home game of the season. I like it.
Yeah, I've been a Saints hater for a lot of the offseason and even through last week. However, I feel really not good about what I saw from Carolina last week against an Atlanta team that's supposed to be in the same tier as them. So for that reason, I think I'm going to take New Orleans on both. Bryce Young was the worst quarterback in the NFL last week. He is a rookie, so give him a little bit of a slack. But C.J. Stroud was a rookie too. Anthony Richardson was a rookie. They had decent games. They didn't play as poorly, and I would argue that Stroud went up against a better defense. Anthony Richardson went up at least against a comparable defense in Jacksonville. So, I mean. Yeah, I think I'm going to go New Orleans on both here. Sorry for there being no real analysis, but.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we're going to talk about these games on Monday anyway, and I wish we could talk more about this one because this actually is a pretty exciting game on the slate. But the later game on Monday is Browns-Steelers. Browns are now, they opened at -2. They're now at -2.5. And I'm excited to see what this offense looks like, not in the rain. For the Cleveland side, I'm excited to see what Deshaun Watson can do. Is he just going to be the guy that he was last year, maybe slightly above that, or is he going to return to that Deshaun Watson that we saw in Houston at one time or another? I'm excited to see that. I'm excited to see Kenny Pickett still doing his thing. I'm right now I'm leaning towards Deshaun Watson being more the guy that we saw last year than being the guy that he used to be. So even if he is just a tad better. So I'm going to go Pittsburgh in this one on the spread and the money line at home, Acrisure.
Now, as somebody that watched that game very closely last week, it is very hard for me to agree with you there. Because the same problems that we had with San Francisco's defense, they were able to put pressure on Kenny Pickett all day. Even though they have a middling secondary, the pressure that they're going to get is just so overwhelming. And Cleveland showed last week that they can put that same kind of pressure on an offense with Myles Garrett, with Zadarius Smith, Dalvin Tomlinson, those guys. That is kind of the difference maker here for me. There's going to be no Deontay Johnson for Pittsburgh, at least for the next few weeks. So that's, Calvin Austin's going to probably move into that role. I'm kind of excited to see what he can do there. As a guy that I liked coming out of the draft. We were able to get him. That's
productive
great.
in week 1 too.
Productive in week 1 as well. Was productive in the preseason, but clearly that means nothing for the Steelers of what production in the preseason does. You also don't have Cam Hayward for, I believe it said 8 weeks for the Steelers, which is a humongous blow. For this front, you're going to have guys needing to step up. Keanu Benton, rookie second-round pick, had a great game, was the second highest-graded rookie in the NFL in Week 1 behind Jalen Carter. So glad to see that. We were right. Looks like we got our Cam Hayward replacement coming right in line. I do think the Cleveland wins this game, though. I think they win it by a touchdown. I don't think this offense is going to have enough juice. I have made the mistake for the first time in my life. I was optimistic about a Steelers team going into the season, and I will never, ever do that again.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. I've got some faith in Tomlin, but that's really what I'm riding on. But we'll see what happens, man. All right. I have to get a skedaddle on, but it's been great. Can't wait for another whole week of football ahead of us. We'll recap the games on Monday and then keep doing our routine as usual. But football is here and we're in the midst of it, man. It feels so great. But we will catch you guys later. Peace.